Hello and welcome to another episode of Sports and Songs podcast. My name is Dan. Today's a bonus episode. The 2025 Minnesota Twins opening day roster projections. I'm also going to include the AAA St. Paul Saints as both clubs intermix together as far as who's going to be left when the cuts are made and the opening day rosters are set up. So what we'll do is go through who should be on each roster on opening day. Now, the Minnesota Twins play one week yet to go. They finish up on Tuesday in spring training, and they will make their cuts down to 26. There has to be 26 players on the roster as of the game's completion on Tuesday's game against the Colorado Rockies. They'll have to be down to 26. The Saints are only a couple days behind that. By Friday next week, they have to be down to 28. Opening day roster is 28 because they start as well. So with the cuts coming up, I want you to keep in mind an episode like this to see what's shaking out with the rosters for both. So what I'll do is go through this list and share with the audience my projections, my personal opinions here on what's going to happen, and also share some background on the reasons why. What we've got here for the Minnesota Twins. Exciting roster, lots of good things happening here for the club. And one of the key points is the depth, and we'll touch on the depth as well. I know a lot of fans were not happy with not much happening in the off season. We'll get into that here because the depth with the farm system being as good as it is, I personally didn't see a need to go after much activity in the offseason. So this is a pretty good roster. Let's start it off here. Top to bottom. Twins on the left, Minnesota Twins, 26 total, and it's broken out by position. And then to the right of that is the AAA St. Paul Saints. They have 28 they need. So in yellow, what we'll get back to is guys on the bubble, guys that are not going to make the big league roster, probably won't even make the AAA roster, but have already played in the AA level, single and AA, and it would be a bit of a demotion if they get sent back to AA, although that could very easily happen. They also just might be cut. So here's the things. On the far right is the injured guys that are injured, that are not 100% healthy, that could also help if the decisions being made. Twins, let's start off with starting pitchers. 5. We know that Lopez, Ryan, Ober, Paddock, Woods, and Richardson are going to be the 5 starters on opening day. No question there. So let's go to the right. Starting pitchers for the Saints. I've got Dobnak there. We've got him signed for one more year. He's going to have to, for what we're paying him, have to be a starter. David Festa, of course, very good. Zebby Matthews, very good. And then you get Andrew Morris and Marco Raya. Now, if you look at the bottom there, the asterisk for the stars, the donations there are, if they have a star asterisk next to their name, they're a top 30 prospect by the Minnesota Twins organization. Top 30 prospect. That is projected to make the big league roster this season. Key point is this season. So that's why I've included them. They, according to the Minnesota Twins management, they will be in a big league uniform for the Minnesota Twins sometime in 2025. So Morris and Raya, that is very interesting. We know Festa will be the next guy up for the Minnesota Twins with the first injury or something happening to the starting 5. Matthews, it'll be nice to have a full season out of AAA from him as well. He could also be pitching in the majors. I would like to have him one more full year in AAA. He didn't get much activity last year, bouncing through high A, low A, and AA as fast as he did. And then Morris and Raya, Marco Raya, be nice to see those guys start the year and log a bunch of innings in AAA for the Saints, with also them being projected to be brought up. Now, on the bubble, Aaron Rozek, left-handed pitcher. No one we mentioned yet is a left-handed pitcher. So the Twins starting pitchers are all righties in both AAA and the majors. Rozek would be a nice addition there, but I don't see him making the roster even for the Saints. And so if he goes back to AA, or if there is an injury, We'll see him. The interesting thing is we have Travis Adams and Corey Lewis. I show them as being on the bubble. Saints typically go with a 5-man rotation for the St. Paul Saints. So if the 5-man starting rotation is already filled, where does Adams and Lewis go? Keep in mind, because they have the asterisk, they're projected at some point this season, even if it's August or September, to be in a big league uniform. So this is some good depth to have. We know there'll be injuries. There always is. And with 5 starting pitchers for the Minnesota Twins in a typical year, they will use 9 or 10 with players with injuries. So I think without even picking up someone at the trade deadline, the Twins are set with these youngsters. Regardless of the injuries, they are set. St. Paul Saints, if you get a chance to get out and see some St. Paul Saints games this year, those starting pitchers are going to be very, very good. Now, injured is Cantorino. He's out for the entire year. He's not going to come into play. But it's interesting to see who's on the bubble here, because regardless of where Rozek, Adams, or Lewis start, more than likely AA, the first injury, they're going to be starting to bring those guys up to AAA and so on. But Adams and Lewis are projected to be in a big league uniform, Minnesota Twins uniform, already this year. So I think that's very aggressive, but we'll see what happens. Let's move on to relief. Relief pitchers for the Twins, we've got 8. And for the Saints, they go with 9. So I've got Danny Colum there. Left-handed pitcher, the only one. All the rest are righties. You get, I think, who will make the opening day roster is Griffin Jacks, Cole Sands, Louis Barland, Duran, Castellanos, Stewart, and Alcala. So there's your 8. There's your 8 right there. Only one lefty. All the rest are righties. Castellanos, Rule 5. Now, he's a Rule 5 pickup from the Philadelphia Phillies, which means he needs to break camp with the Twins. He needs to spend the entire year per the Rule 5 rules with the big organization, with the big league. So he's taking up a spot right there, and I've got him in there because I'm assuming he will make the big league roster with the Minnesota Twins. He's not a guy that can go down to AA. He's not a guy that can go down to AAA. He needs to be on the big league roster. If not, if they cut him, he has to go back then to the Phillies, and the Minnesota Twins as an organization has to pay a fee because it didn't work. They've got to pay and write a check to the Phillies if Castellanos does not make the big league roster with the Twins. So I'm assuming he'll be on. Now, Castellanos is a former starter. He's a current reliever. He can log a bunch of innings, and he's young. Being the fact that the Twins took a gamble on him on that draft, I will be putting down him on the opening day roster. He will be making the roster for the Minnesota Twins. Now, let's go to relievers. For the Saints, I've got Funderburk, a lefty, not making the Twins. He'll start the year in AAA, I believe. Darren McCawn, Spies, Nowlin, Marcano, Blewett, Jensen, Yanoa, and Mizovic. There's some lefties in there. So they've got of the 9 relievers there, they've got 4 left-handed arms that could be an injury or 2 away from coming up to the big leagues. And I think Funderburk should be up in the big leagues. Nowlin is going to be more of a stretch. Marcano could work. Mizovic is an older guy, a veteran that they signed. Same with Yanoa. And we've seen Jensen and Blewett in the past. So those should be the 9 that break camp with the Saints, which means on the bubble, we've got guys like Kyle Bischoff that I don't see making the Saints roster. Martinez, Cesar, Macquarie, Feigl, lefty, Boziovic, and Baker, all on the bubble. So this week, with the games that are being played and the cuts that are being announced, keep these guys in mind, because I don't see the players enlisted on the bubble not even making the AAA Saints. So, which means they would be down in AA. Now, keep in mind that AA roster for Wichita is fairly full, if not very full already. So these are the important guys to watch, because it would be a demotion to go back to AA, or they're going to be taking someone else's spot altogether. That's why I think doing it in a format like this is very interesting because it shows who could be on the out looking in. Now, injured, Daniel Duarte, Ramirez, Michael Tonkin, Justin Topa. When they get healthy, Tonkin and Topa, when those guys get healthy, they will be back on that Minnesota League roster on the big leagues. So now you're going to have to be sending someone back down of those players that I already have there. So this, which helps coming into the depth that we're talking about. Ramirez and Duarte probably be with the Saints when they come back. So you got all these guys on the bubble, but you got some very good pitching there in relief. I'm a big fan of Thunderberg as well. For catchers, Twins go with 2. Saints typically go with 3. Twins will have Jeffers and Vasquez. Vasquez on that contract that ends this year. We've got to keep him. That's a $10 million deal. He's not going anywhere. We're not going to trade him. We can't cut him. We'll keep him on the roster. I like Vasquez anyway. Jeffers will be the main catcher. Now, the Saints will go with 3. They've got Yair Camargo and Jefferson Morales. Now, they also have Cartaya. He was picked up, and he is already a top 30 prospect for Cartaya. He is good. He's a guy that the Twins, if they didn't have Vasquez, would already be probably starting with the big leagues. So they're going to move him. Watch for him to be moved the quickest up to the big leagues. But Camargo and Morales aren't far behind. The talent with these 2 guys, very, very good. They only carry 3. So on the bubble is Patrick Winkle. I don't see Winkle even making that AAA roster, and he is a good catcher. So he might be down in AA. Infielders. Let's go with the infielders. 7 for the Minnesota Twins and typically 7 for the Saints. So we've got Castro, Correa, Gasper, Miranda, France, Lee, and Julian. That's who I have as the 7 infielders for the Twins. I've got their positions off to the right there in parentheses. Several can play multiple positions. The Twins like that. Baldelli likes that you have some plug-and-play players. Now, Royce Lewis's injury actually makes this, I believe, easier. It was a log jam for the infielders. I've got Lewis over in the right side under injured. It's only a hamstring. Should only be a couple of weeks that he will be out. But if he's out, here's the 7 that I've got. Includes Julian. I like him as a leadoff hitter. Like him as a second baseman. I'd rather not see him move to first. Now, Brooks Lee, infielder. Ty France, they picked up to play first. Miranda should be your third baseman. Correa, Castro. Gasper plays first, second, and catch. Because he can play all 3, I think Gasper gets a spot on that opening day roster. Ty France had a tough year last year, designated for assignment, wasn't on a big league roster. Twins picked him up. This should be a good experiment to have him. I like an everyday first baseman. France could be it. I'd rather not have Miranda over there. I'd rather have Miranda at third base there on an everyday pattern. So that's with Lewis being out. So do you notice any hesitation in my voice? No, this is a solid group of infielders with the utility guys, the starters. I like this group. Now for the Saints, I've got Elis, Fitzgerald, Severino, Schobel, Alvarez, Prado, and Mike Ford. Those are the guys that should make opening day lineup for the St. Paul Saints. Peyton Elis, star next to his name. They've got him as a top 30 prospect, which means look for him at some point in the season to make the big leagues with an injury or something to the Twins players. He's a second baseman. We're already deep at second base, but they want to move him up. So look for him to move up. Severino's already been with the organization for a while. Anthony Prado was with the big league club for a little bit last year, and Ford is a veteran as well. So there's 7. Here's the question. On the bubble, I've got Aaron Sabato. Looks like he'll be AA. He was a former number 1 pick for the Minnesota Twins. He'll spend another year, looks like, in AA because there's no room for him in AAA. Jake Rucker, no room. Luke Keeschel, I don't see a spot for him. Darren Sheffield, and Ben Ross. So those guys have already played other areas in the minors. They've already been around the block. Being no room for them, I see Keishel starting at AA with Wichita. Now, Keishel is a second baseman, but has worked out at first and outfield. He's a quick riser. He's one of the top prospects the Twins have, and they want to see him in a big league uniform in 2025. That's why he's got the asterisk. He's going to be moving up quick. Now, where are they going to put him? I don't know. We're jam-packed. Always with baseball, you have injuries. So look for Keishel to start the year in AA, and after a month or two, go to AAA and have him spend the rest of the year there. And as the Twins need it, he can come up and join the Twins. Keishel should be a fixture for the Minnesota Twins long-term down the road. You should see his name in there. Now, keep in mind, all this is with Royce Lewis being out. So, Keishel's a guy you're going to want to watch. Elis is another one you're going to want to watch. But these other ones be tough. It'd be tough fighting this week to get spots on either of these rosters. Outfielders. Twins go with 4. Saints go with 4. Twins will have Buxton in center, Walder in right, Larnach in left. And then you got Bader in center. Bader's a center fielder. I don't like when they use him on the corners. He's a true center fielder. I'd rather have Willie Castro or someone else play out there in the outfield and in the corners. Bader is strictly a center fielder. So look for him to be a Michael C. Taylor equivalent. Not like last year when we brought in the right fielder from the Dodgers to use Margot. Margot can be more versatile and move around and play several positions. Bader is a center fielder. Yes, I've seen him play left and right in spring training, but in the major leagues, he is not a corner outfielder. He's really going to be relieving Buxton only. Now, outfielders for the Saints, Will Holland, Deshaun Kiersey Jr., Austin Martin, and Alan Cerda. Now, if you notice, I don't even have Austin Martin making the big league roster to start with. He'll be starting in AAA because there's no room. A guy like Martin, I think, should be up in the majors. Can play outfield, can play infield, shortstop, infielder, middle infielder by trade, has developed into a pretty versatile guy there too. So one injury away, you're going to see Martin back up in the big leagues. Deshaun Kiersey Jr., one of the better center fielders you're going to see coming up through the ranks, can hit, can steal, can hit for power, hit for average, play defense, and can steal some bases. It'd be fun to watch him. I think he's going to be bored at AAA, and look for him to be moving up as well. Will Holland is another one. But this leaves 4 players on the bubble. Emmanuel Rodriguez, a top 30 prospect for the Twins, suffered another injury. I didn't put him in the injured column because I don't think it's officially an injury. He just has a tight leg injury or a hamstring or something. Nothing big, but he could be starting the year injured. I think he'll be in AA. Carson McCusker. I don't see him finding a spot on the AAA roster with who they've got already there. So look for him in AA. Kalai Rosario spent some time in the last 2 years in the Arizona Fall League, tearing it up, doing really, really well. He's another prospect. I don't have a star next to his name because he's not projected to make the roster for the Twins this year. He's estimated to make the big league roster in 2026. So give him another year. I think he'll be in AA and then spend a bunch of the year in AAA eventually. And then we have Brycino. So really what we need to focus on here the next 5-6 days is the guys in yellow on the bubble. Of course, we'll get some injuries as the season starts and kicks off here. That'll help ease the pain, but that Saints roster looks to be pretty solid. The St. Paul Saints roster, very, very solid. The youth, I like the youth. The pitching, starting pitching, relief pitching, the Minnesota Twins infielders, the outfielders, the utility guys. It looks to be an exciting year for the Minnesota Twins organization, meaning that Saints team should be very, very strong. Minnesota Twins should be good. So pending injuries, the only thing I really don't have on this list is the injuries. And as those happen, that'll help make decisions easier, but there's only 6 games left of the spring training. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that shakes out. Please leave your comments behind underneath here in the comments section. Once again, my name is Dan. This is the 2025 Minnesota Twins opening day roster projections along with the St. Paul Saints. What that leaves us after we get the roster set for those two teams, AAA and the majors, is those guys on the bubble. What's going to happen? What's going to happen with those players? Like I said, AA Wichita, their roster is almost full already. So we can't be sending that many guys down. So look for injuries to get guys a spot or outright cuts coming up. Thanks for your time.